Hi, Jack. How are you?
Can you hear me now?
I can.
How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah?
Good.
Sorry. Oh, sorry about the other day. It's like I got up at 4:30 in the morning for you.
That's okay. No,
Yeah.
that's okay. So, where are you located?
Just north of London. So,
Ah,
yeah.
International Waters. I love it. I love it. And so, yeah. So, how this is going to work, Jack, is I'm going to say welcome to Ask Win, and I'm going to introduce you and let you take it away and share your story.
Hmm.
And I am all ready to go whenever you are.
Okay, no worries. And then I need to ask you some questions at the end, all right?
Yeah, at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no worries.
Alright.
Okay,
So,
cool.
welcome to Ask Glenn, everyone. Today I have Jack with me, and Jack is in international waters, aka across the pond from me. So we're doing this interview a little bit early for me, but that's okay. I love what I do, so I am slightly a little bit early. Doesn't matter for me. So I'm gonna let Mr. Jack take it away and introduce him. So
Thanks for that, and thanks for having me on, and thanks for getting up at what is it, 4:30 in the morning there.
yep,
So,
yep.
so gosh, my name's Jack Bowman. I am a podcast veteran of 15 years experience, and my primary speciality, I suppose, if you're going to call it anything, is working in scripted audio fiction. Audio plays that are specifically designed for the podcast market, and that's what I've been doing on and off for 15 years. So that's my thing.
And what caught my attention is how we came across each other, you guys. Is I am in a podcasting group, and you literally said in the podcasting group, you put it right out there. You said no one cares about scripted audio. I'm like, no, someone cares, and it's me. And you're like, then I'll take. Then I think you were responding to Brent Basham's post
Mm,
about it.
yeah.
And I'm like, you go, no one cares. And I'm like, it's me, DM me, and we need to talk to get
Yes.
you, to get someone to care about
Yeah.
it because I am super fascinated by audio and super fascinated by scripted audio. I
Mm.
apologize for the cough.
That's okay.
But what is scripted audio and how does it fall into the podcasting market?
Well, the easy part is the last part of that question, which is with great difficulty right now. But scripted podcasting is an evolution from our old radio play traditions. So in America, you would have had you had the great radio plays, Buck Rogers and Sherlock Holmes, all the way up to the NPR Star Wars until the 1970s, where it's actors. It's not like an audio book. It's like multicast actors performing on the microphone, performing the story, like television or film, but just with no visuals. Where it is now with the podcasting space is it's an evolution from uh, scripted podcasting kind of fell away in the 1970s from the US, but the radio tradition, sorry, a scripted drama, I should say, fell away because there was podcasting in the 1970s. That makes sense. I need more coffee. So scripted drama, audio drama, radio drama fell away from the US in the end of the 1970s, but that radio tradition continued in the UK and across Europe. That's what people might know as the traditional BBC Radio 4 play for
Yeah.
example. But what podcasting has done in the last 15 years is that even in the UK, that things like the BBC and still to a degree companies like Audible now, they're quite difficult to get content into, content made, get your content produced by these entities. And when podcasting came along, and back in those days, it wasn't called podcasting here, it was called online radio, because the iPod hadn't yet been invented. When it came along, it actually allowed all these creatives that loved all the radio storytelling traditions of multicast, multi-voice storytelling to find a new outlet and basically create their own work. There was no commissioners or anyone hanging over us, so we literally could come together as a bunch of creatives, write scripts, book a studio. We were all learning on the job as we went and start to create our own material. And where we are now is 15 years down the line. That's particularly in the last 6 months, but the last 3-4 years, with the explosion of podcasting in the US, people now know that it is its own medium. It is a unique form of audio delivery as opposed to radio. It's not just like something you can port between the two in any way. And we're now seeing a massive pickup in storytellers, particularly in the US and the UK, starting to use podcasting to create very, very independent, original, fresh story ideas, and tell stories and tell stories outside of all those old systems where there are a lot of controls or gatekeepers, say like the BBC or Audible, etc. So it's quite an exciting time because we now have this kind of liberated bunch of creatives discovering audio, creating brilliant ideas. Some are now starting to break through. We haven't had a serial moment. That's the thing to say with audio fiction, and that's what makes it slightly difficult, because at the minute we're all running around creating these wonderful little audio stories, while there is an industry above us that's overall trying to monetize and formalize the podcast industry, to take it from community to industry, as we know. And this is where I say audio fiction is a difficult one, because no one has yet worked out how to monetize audio fiction. So proportionally, it's a more labor intensive, on paper, a more expensive form of podcast storytelling, because it's not just like you and me talking over this call, or say, I don't know, Joe Rogan just sitting in his booth talking to someone. You know what I mean? That's actually quite cost efficient. We're talking about throwing tons of people at each other, and I tell you anything about actors, you got to feed them well. And you got, you got to look after your post-production team and stuff like that. Everything has to be built from scratch, because you have to make this imaginary aural world from nothing but your script. So that's why I say it's scripted audio podcast fiction is a difficult fit in the market right now, but it is one that everyone is acknowledging that needs to happen.
Well, I have a favorite audio fiction drama. I actually like audio fiction. Believe it or not, it's one of people think, oh, Win likes interviews, Win likes everything else. No, I typically like audio fiction because it draws me into a different land. And one I recommend for those of you guys who don't know about audio fiction yet, and I think you should. After talking to Jack, I think you should. Or after listening to Jack, I think you should. And the one I like is written by a friend of mine, and she does an amazing job. Her name is Sarah Warner, out of Boise, Idaho, I think. And she no, actually, she's out of South Dakota here in the United States, and she does Goal in Space. Goal in Space, and it's phenomenally done. And and I'm like, follow her to a T, and she knows I fangirl about her. I have actually watched her speak on a panel
Mhm.
right before COVID. And I am wanting to get her on my podcast to talk about. I'm wanting to get any audio creator on my podcast, especially audio drama creators, because I want to raise the bar a little bit. You actually, Jack, got me thinking when you responded to that post to say that no one gives a flying rat's ass, and you can insert the S word,
Yeah.
about audio dramas. And it's like, no, me, I just have to teach you guys how to love them. Like I have to teach everyone else how to love podcasting
Mm.
for
I,
the longest time, and no one gave a flying rat's ass about um, podcasting in general.
mm.
They knew what a book was. They knew what Win was publishing books, but they still don't know enough about podcasting to really have a love for it like I do. But you have a love for audio dramas and fiction. And so now we have to bang the drum loudly to get people off their little chairs and start listening to audio fiction.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes. No, I agree. So, like, I mean, like, for me, growing up as as a kid, like my dad would introduce me to like Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds,
Yeah.
which is a prog rock album, but it's an amazing piece of sound oral storytelling of that story. And he also played me a series called Journey into Space, which was an old BBC science fiction radio drama, and it was the last radio drama in the UK to get bigger audience figures than television, because it was that much of an event. And that kind of, and there was like little bits, like you get those little read along stories from Lucasfilm, like the audio version of Return of the Jedi to help you to read. So sound was always there as part of my childhood. But I think really what spun it for me when things started to click into place a little bit later was like listening to the work of people like Dirk Maggs, who in the 90s started to create audio movies. And in a way, I think he was actually making content that would have been blockbuster podcast content, 20 odd years before the medium was even delivered. And you now see how he's had this massive resurgence in the audio fiction sphere with things like Sandman, Neverwhere, Aliens, and stuff like that, because he was 20 years ahead of his time. And it just, his work kind of taught me that things don't have to sound like a stage play being recorded
Well,
around a microphone,
when
and you can do so much more.
when you think about it, Harry Potter is audio drama in a book format. Hello?
Hmm.
Harry Potter is a audio drama in a book format because, and I mention that because it's one of my favorite things. But when you, unless you grow up around sound, like, I don't know what your dad did for work, but my dad, I'm not kidding, was a professional sound engineer,
Amazing.
and he worked for the Pink Floyd, Bob Dylan, John Denver, um, Dolly Parton, yeah, Neil
Yeah.
Diamond, just to name a few. And so, yeah, so basically, I grew up around sound, and I grew up around high quality sound. And so when music and podcasting came along, I fell in love with it. Any genre, any any type of audio story, I fell in love with it. And
Mm.
I'm audio learner too, so all my stuff has to be in audio for me to retain it due to my cerebral palsy. But
Mm.
I think that has nothing to do with cerebral palsy. Either you love it, or you don't like it. I happen to love it because I know what high quality sound should sound like. Thank you,
Hmm.
Dad. And so I think these people, honestly, and I hate to be blunt, people, but I think you need to pull the stick out of your ass and basically start listening to these audio dramas because they'll take you into a different world. And for those of you who didn't understand what Jack was saying by the BBC is our version of NPR. So basically, that's the English version of NPR too. But the BBC does more than the national public radio.
Hmm.
They do audio dramas, they do everything else. But it's like, come on, people, you need to give these audio drama creators a chance.
Yes, and that's the big thing. I mean, obviously, like we still we're a niche within podcasting, and we still have the same problems that every other podcast creator has,
Yeah.
regardless of the content, discoverability, monetization, etc. But if you want some good news, um, since March, when the lockdown began, and particularly when it went global, I actually haven't had a lot of time to rest because I've seen a massive uptick in the people wanting to ask me about audio fiction
Yay! Yes.
from literally the smallest actor who just wants help on how do I build a home studio? I need to do this now, right up to one A-list Hollywood global studio who found my number on LinkedIn and rang me up at 10:30 at night one night saying, hey, we need to talk about this audio fiction thing. Because I think what suddenly happened, we were both over in Florida in March, and I was over at Podcast Movement in February, and like, being the British guy in LA, of course, I was running around taking the meetings and all going, yeah, audio fiction, yeah, not yet, but yeah, fine, it's fine. But now, I think people are looking at, if you think about the super tragic impacts just on the creative arts of COVID, let alone the human one of globally. But you're looking at studios in virtual shutdown, you're looking at TV shows being cancelled because they can't continue production or on indefinite hold. There's no theatre anywhere in the world. I mean, that's
There's
just
no
horrific.
theater.
But
I was
people still.
person that is a theater actor, and I need to follow up with him because he said I want to come on your platform and talk about it. And
Mm,
me as a journalist, because I love theater and now love audio dramas and still love audio dramas, I want to help the little guys.
mm,
Honestly, you guys, I want to help the little guys because Jack is right. We're talking about a world pandemic that's gone on and on and on, and people need hope. People don't need the COVID numbers. People need hope more than they need the COVID numbers, to be honest with you. And COVID has impacted every sense of our lives.
hmm for sure. The one thing I'd say is like people are suddenly going, hang on, the audio dramas, we could do those without studios. We don't need to bring actors together. We don't need, you see what I mean? So suddenly I think the cogs are starting to turn now, where people are going like, actually, is this a form of entertainment we're going to have to rock with now? There is a joke I'm hearing that in the UK that we're running out of television, because I have friends who are continuity announcers for the networks, and they go, we're getting less and less work because there's less and less things to announce. So I think if there's if there's following a pattern here, it's scripted audio fiction, podcast content, etc. is going to go on a massive increase. And the bigger the podcast market gets overall, then the more audio fiction is going to go in there, because we're a niche, but our niche gets bigger as the market gets
Yeah.
bigger. So I think there's a lot to actually be hopeful for in the scripted audio content space. And we're my I worked on and off, and still do work on and off, with Dagaz Media with Fred Greenhouse, and he said at the Podfest virtual event, he said, us, audio creatives who storytell using scripted content, we've always been improvisers. You know what I mean? The sound of a punch is us hitting a rubber mallet against a cabbage. You know what I mean? That's how we get
Yeah.
that sound. So we've always been like picking up something from the shelf to make a nice banging noise or something like that, so we've always been great adapters and great improvisers. And this is one situation which scripted audio fiction can very safely, if you're careful, and very smartly adapt to. And we can still be content creators at a time where content creation, which is the thing everyone needs, not only do they need hope, they need taking away from this world, they need entertainment, and it's a privilege to be in a position where we might now be in a place where we can make that content that is needed, where others are struggling, and help pick up that workload.
Yeah, it's a real privilege to be a journalist to you guys, and it's a real privilege to support the little guys, and it's a real privilege to be in the podcasting space creating. I hope that the I'm helping educate people about other people's lives, and I hope that I'm educating people just a little bit about cerebral palsy along the way.
Mhm.
But Jack, what is your podcast that now that we talked about audio creation and audio scripted dramas, what is your podcast that you want everyone to listen to?
Will it be the one that is coming out right now? In fact, it's going to be the season finale on Sunday. It's called Circles. It was created by a British writer called Brendan Connolly, and it is a little mini horror podcast series event. We're going for that kind of old feel. In the US, it used to say the limited TV series event of the
Yeah,
year. So we're going to try that for podcasting. But it's about four friends who are each confined in their own safe space because they're being hunted by a demon, which they took on 15 years ago in their past, and it's now coming back for revenge. And we recorded it when it was pitched to me. Brendan said, I've got this idea, can we make it? And this is like literally 3 weeks into lockdown, no studios, no studios available. And I said, how's it going to work? And he said, da, da, da. And I went, right. In that second, I think I've said before that I think my special superpower is that I see sound. And I haven't quite worked out how to use that superpower to save the world yet, but I instantly saw how that podcast was going to work. And like that started painting all the pictures in my head and went, right, let's do this. So we were able to put together a writer's room, which Brendan ran for 3 weeks, while I spent 2 weeks researching remote recording techniques. I was working with Travis Vengroff, who does The White Vault, and Hem Cleveland, who runs a lot of D&D podcasts online. And I spent 2 weeks working with them, learning how to construct a remote recording. And then if you couldn't get any crazier, when we were putting it all together, we ended up getting submissions from all over the world. So we worked out how to make so we got about a cast of 11 overall, and we were making all those actors work together live through Zoom while engineering their own soundtrack at home in their own studios. But we were doing it across 3 time zones and 2 continents. So we had Tao there in California. We had Bryce, he's in Florida. And then I had the rest of the cast spread out across Oxford, Reading, and London. And we were just like literally coordinate across all these time zones, but they were all working together live as if they were in the studio together. And I think it's come off pretty well, and people have been like really, really blown away by the quality of the work.
well,
Tom,
I have to check it out, and then you will have to DM me about this because now I want to check it out.
yeah,
Because as I said, I love any podcast, especially audio dramas, And as we wrap this interview up, do you have
Mhm.
any questions for me?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thrilled to hear that you love your audio fiction. So aside from the one that is your favorite right now, and aside from Harry Potter, my question for you is, what audio fiction story have you heard that's really got under, got into your soul and like haunted your dreams? And what is that one kind of like that holy grail of storytelling for you that gives you this enthusiasm?
Well, if you ever heard if there's two. One is Becoming of Michelle Obama, and that's her audiobook, by the way,
Mhm.
Becoming. And she does a really good job at narrating it. And trust me, Michelle Obama could get anyone to narrate it on the planet, but she decided to narrate her own audiobook. And she does a really good job about narrating her own audiobook. The other one I like that you guys are gonna laugh at, which you've heard me mention before as my favorite book, is A Walk in the Woods by
Mhm.
Phil Bryson. And I think I haven't listened to it in a really long time, but I think it's a really good narrated audiobook. And I have a couple audiobooks out there myself. I don't narrate my books except I'm working on a journalism self-help book
Mhm.
that I just told someone yesterday that I want to narrate my own book because I think that would be a really special treat
Mm.
for my fans so that they know I'm human and so that they know that I do actually do pay attention to my craft, not only write
Mm.
the book and pay not only write the book but also narrate the book because I really want to get into audio narration due to it's my secret love.
Mhm.
And if I could manage the chaos of audio, scripted audio, I would.
Mhm.
But because of cerebral palsy, there's only so much I can do.
Yep.
So, yeah. But that audio creation is the best thing since sliced bread. I mean, you can have interview style to different actors, to different, you could, just to name a few. I mean, if you wanted to get into audio creation, start out with the interview, then go up, you guys, to scripted audio. I
Mm.
mean, it's wonderful what these voice actors are doing, and um, these voice actors are doing, and it's amazing what they're doing.
Mm. And that's the thing, it's not hard to get started because, like, if anyone's listening to this saying, "Oh, I don't have a studio, I don't have a microphone, what do we do? What do I do?" Well, you've got voice memos on your phone. So maybe, write a 2-minute skit, ask your friend to record one side of it on their voice memo, you record the other, then you'll have to bring it. And then you can edit it on something like Audacity or Reaper, which is free DAW. You know what I mean? You can bolt it all together, and then you'll be, before it, you'll be teaching yourself how to voice perform to a mic, even if it is in your phone, and you'll be teaching yourself how to do a little bit of the post-production, which is the editing. And then what that will also do in the back of your head is you'll start going, "Oh, I don't like that bit." That's fine, but when you're thinking about the bits you don't like, think about what you change, and then you're training yourself to handle actors and become a director.
Yeah.
Everything over the last 15 years I've done, like, I had a TV producer say, he called me up the other day and he said, "I'm really scared to talk to you because of your website." But it's like, no, it's fine. I could talk audio fiction to you. It's okay. But it's like everything has been self-taught. unless you were in something like the BBC, and God bless it for keeping the radio tradition alive, because without it, they wouldn't. I don't think we wouldn't be having this conversation. It wouldn't be happening. Um, you know, you know, despite that, that tradition is alive still. But we're in this exciting time where like what my lesson is, unless you were in the BBC, you wouldn't learn how to do these things like in any formal way. There's some colleges that teach aspects of what you need, but to be an audio storyteller, you kind of just go out there, do it yourself. I'm kind of proof that I'm self-taught and I've self-learned, and I still don't know everything. Every day I actually panic because I realize I know less. So if you're listening to this going, how do I start? Just start with the mics on your phone and a bit of editing software. And there's Free Sound, which has hundreds of thousands of free special effects you can play with. Just put it all together. Try and tell the story through the sound.
Yeah, just put it all together, you guys. It doesn't hurt. And then you can send it to me to see if I like it. See,
There you go. Perfect
there
test.
we go. There we go. I mean, I like my audio dramas, you guys, so you could send it to me and see if I like it, and then I can I can help you put it up. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out.
No.
I went to school for journalism, and I was lucky enough to um not necessarily at this program I'm at now, but I was lucky enough to take the only podcasting class at a university in California,
Mm-hmm.
and that was amazing to me. And that was absolutely amazing to me that now they have a class for podcasting. But you have to figure out what you want to do. And when it comes to audio dramas, it's easier to be self-taught, and then you can have the you can make it fall into place. It's easier to be self-taught, and I will always stay in podcasting. I will always say, even though I love written work, I will always stay in podcasting, you guys,
Mm.
because my greatest pleasure in life is to interview people, get their stories out there, and try and help. That's my
Yes.
greatest pleasure in life.
And
And
yeah,
I don't
I've been listening, and you're really good at it. You get some cracking people on, and
know.
they
And
really open up and tell.
I felt so bad for you. I'm like when you begged and pleaded on Brent Basham. Supposed not to say that Brent
Yeah.
Basham is. I've had Brent on
Mm.
here too, and it's like, okay, Brent, you need, and I think if you're just listening, Brent, you need to put audio creation on product. You need to put scripted audio on product, because there's and look, I'm happy to interview other people who are
Hmm.
into scripted audio too. I'll put myself out there right now, you
Yeah.
guys. So when you hear this episode on Sunday, because it will be coming out this Sunday, um, look, come knock on my DMs, please, because I'm happy to help the little guys out. And I felt so bad for you, Jack, when he said no one cares about it, and the next thing you got a little knock from me. I'm like, I do. Help. Help.
'Cause I don't know if you saw further on down that thread, but Brent, bless him, he's such a lovely guy, and he said, "Oh, actually, I'm going to give Circles a go. I'm going to have a listen to it.
Yeah.
I've never listened to a podcast like this
Oh,
before." And I went, "There you
oh,
go. You see,
yay. Yeah,
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 one
yeah,
more,
yeah, yeah. So one
one
more
more
vote,
coming into the fold." So
one more vote, and I'm like, yay! When Jack said, when Chuck goes, no one cares. I'm like, help. I do. I do because of how I grew up. I
Mhm.
how I grew up, and a lot of people know I mentioned that. I mentioned that, and I almost pulled a special audio podcast for you guys, but my interviewee was not in best of shape. Although I should have pulled it off here now that I think about it. But I yeah, I almost pulled a couple minutes of my dad
Mm.
speaking just so you could hear my my background. Of course, it would have been me interviewing him, but
Mm.
he wasn't in the and I wish, as a legacy piece, I wish I um interviewed him because he was a fascinating guy, and
Mm.
even when he had full-fledged oxygen, he was still um cracking jokes and making making sense of the world even when he was on death's door.
Mm.
So but I didn't have I didn't have my laptop with me enough to record it. I guess I could have recorded it by my phone. But I but as a legacy piece,
Mm.
you should at least record you can't record it now because of COVID restrictions. But as a legacy piece, you guys, I challenge you. Um, I challenge you to this.
Mm.
Record someone who you really, really love, and then put it in your audio drama.
Mhm.
Record a person who's really close to you, and then put it in your scripts and audio. Use that as the intro, or use that in the script audio, because I think the previous generation to us will they might they will understand podcasting if they're involved.
Mm.
So you may want to try that trick because people love being involved in podcasting. They love sharing their stories. They love, and my even though my dad was a bigger fan of my books than my podcast, he was trying to support me, and he was trying to instill in me his love of music, and of course I got the love of music, and so I absolutely love music. I absolutely love um audio dramas. I am because I do it, and the secret about me is, even though I study the crafts, even though I um study the craft of audio and studying the craft of um, interview styles and trying to get better about interview. I don't necessarily like interview shows
Mhm.
because I do one. I
Yes.
do one. So, and people ask me all the time, and I wanted to get your opinion on this too, Jack. Um, People ask me all the time. They say, do you listen to your own work? And I say, the interviews I give, I don't listen to. I don't listen to it. It's a policy because my brain can't listen to my own voice. And I once had a colleague tell me, well, that's normal when you're normal in that because my our brains can't listen to our own voice.
Yeah. I used to teach RADA. I used to do like voice reels for them and tell them how to use the voice. And obviously, you're relying on the headphones and the cans as you're performing, so you are hearing your own voice. And I say, look, for the first 2 minutes, you're gonna freak the hell out because it's not pleasant to hear your own voice. In my head I sound like Benedict Cumberbatch, but I'm not sure what I sound like outside of my own skull. Well, I know what I sound like out, which is like it's not Benedict. But it's perfectly natural to not like it. But what will happen is that the more you're exposed to your own voice, which you have to be in a scripted audio fiction environment, is that eventually your brain will just cancel it out and you'll get on with it because you know we're always, as human beings, looking for contact between each other. We're always looking for eye contact, and
Yeah.
that's the way we communicate. When it comes to scripted audio fiction, we can't. We have to have that relationship with the microphone, which means our only connection, mic's in front of me, my only connection to you is through the cans, the headphones that I'm wearing. So I have to switch on that additional sense, and kind of forget about my eyes. As someone once taught me, I was once taught, sing with your ears. And I think it's kind of true of voice acting. You're acting with your ears. It's getting away from that. But actually, you said something interesting, and I want to postulate a little wild theory. You said that your dad worked with on the Pink Floyd. Was that on
Yes.
like how many of their albums?
I know he worked on another book in the wall. I know
Hmm.
it because I have the poster, and he he and I don't tell people this, but he actually got two gold records. One one for Neil Diamond's
Hmm.
Love at the Greek. When you look at the back of Love at the Greek, you'll actually see
Hmm.
my which I'm really proud of, my dad's name and then my last name. So I'm very proud of that. And then he got another one for, I believe, I have to double check, but I believe it was Bob Dylan for
Hmm.
Sound 89. And those are the only two he got. But I am extremely proud of my dad for doing the sound engineering. And speaking of audio, Thomas, if you ever, and I have seen a sound engineering board, a soundboard, and if you ever have seen a soundboard, and if you ever know what a sound mixer does, hey, they
Yeah.
do a lot. So
Yes.
let's just put it that way. They do a
Yeah.
lot. So they just, mixing sound is not for the weekend hunt, you guys.
Not at
And
all.
yeah,
I,
mixing
wa-
sound is not for the weekend hunt.
I was going to say, because I might have a sneaky little theory now that, like, because I mentioned War of the Worlds and you mentioned Pink Floyd, and I think a lot of the people who are going, like, doing podcast scripted fiction right now, I'm going to lay odds. I bet they each have one favorite prog rock album in their past. And I wonder if it's the sound design and prog rock on those albums from like 30, 40 years ago that have sort of
I was
subconsciously influenced us
into
all.
that too because um, when you hear the Pink Floyd, and I'll mention a song here,
Mhm.
and I will definitely mention it. We don't need no education, and
Yes.
that was a controversial song to begin with. And when you hear the sound beats to that song, it's like I don't know where Big Boy got that. I'm coming to find out 33 years later where they got it from somewhere.
Mm. And yeah, that's a funny thing. I actually bought that album 2 weeks ago, and I'm in the middle of sound designing right now. So maybe it's just like I just felt a need to sort of absorb
Yeah,
some
yeah, no,
subconscious
no,
greats, because prog rock albums, they're designed in like they're beyond music. They're like general oral art. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, so I'll have to see. Maybe we should start a little thread every time you interview an audio
I,
fiction
I
person.
love it.
ask them if they have a favorite prog rock album.
I love it. And so you said pop rock, or say it again. Say it
Pro,
again.
prog rock. So that's things
Pop
like Pink Floyd,
rock.
Jeff Wayne. Yeah.
Pog rock. I have never heard of that up until today. I have never heard. See, you're educating me. Pog rock.
Prog
And
rock. Yeah.
I have never heard of that in my life. I
It, it means progressive rock. So that's where people like Pink
just,
Floyd and all those
yeah.
guys. So what
But
they were doing is it's like
pop,
they wouldn't necessarily do anything like those guitar riffs that go on for 5 minutes.
yeah.
That's just them saying what happens if I do a guitar riff for 5 minutes. But then you listen to say like Dark Side of the Moon, there might be a guitar riff, but then it's like this little kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
cry might come in, or
Yeah. No.
or another one. I think if you really want to drill down on and how to construct podcast sound, and that's going to sound real left field, is there's a video with Tony Visconti talking about the production of Heroes, the David Bowie song, and he breaks down how they layered that song. And it's just like we had this noise and that noise and that noise, and all in
Yeah.
isolation they make no sense, but let me take this track out, put this track in, and suddenly you
Pog rock.
get that sound. Yeah.
Now I as a journalist and now as a studio engineer's daughter, I need to research punk rock more because I'm like, okay, now it makes complete sense. And my dad said working with the Pink Floyd was the most fascinating thing he ever did in his life. Now I understand why he said that, because because of the terminology you just used. And I never understood why the Pink Floyd was so cool. I never understood it. I knew that my dad worked with him on one tour, but I never understood why the Pink Floyd was so cool and why I gravitated towards it. Yes, gravitated towards it. But now I understand. Punk rock is something that's near and dear to my heart. And I
Mhm.
didn't know the terminology up until today. So teachers, you have to teach me these things now,
Sure.
sure, Jack, because I we'll school each other a long time here because we'll school each other. And you mentioned that you went to Pond Fest in Orlando right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
I I was there. I was physically there. I don't know. We were all running around like chickens with our heads cut off. But one of the things I said to my fan base is, if you want to spot me, spot the orange wheelchair. And do you know what? My fan base took me up on that, and they came and found me. And it's like, okay, now I am a little, now I know that people actually listen to my podcast.
Mhm.
And so how it's interesting how we will think a lot, like since Podfest in Orlando in March, and I'm hoping to go back.
Mm, me too, because I like Chris rang me up afterwards and he was like, "Hey Jack, how was your first podcast?" And I went, "You know what? Because I'd done PME in February. No one, but it's my usual joke. So for future historians listening to this, the year is 2020, and Jack Bowman got to the US twice this year. So and that PME is like very businessy, and you're running around doing all the meetings and stuff like that. But I was just like so loving. I said to Chris, I so love the community and the
Yeah,
feeling that
I
I
did.
just sit down, and I made so many friends at Podfest, and I got to meet people that I've been wanting to meet for years, like Casey Wayland, who does We're Alive, and he's a genius, and Travis, who does White Vault, who I
I
mentioned, and yeah, and just hanging out and talking to people because they're all excited about podcasting
I
and
got
sitting
to
there.
meet two of my heroes, and I did I did fan moments with one of them, and he knows it too. And I didn't do fan moments with the other one because we were in the middle of the hallway. But I I am like people. I'm like people. There's boy, there's actually arms and legs behind the
Yeah.
uh people that I listen to, and people like when you actually have a sample that you're not making making it up. I'm like, no, and this is how I get around a wheelchair for long distances, and people like when I listen to your podcast, I follow you on social media. Can I hug you? And of course, this is before we were. This is
Mm.
when we were allowed to hug, and I'm like, hey, you have almonds and legs. I love it. I
I-
absolutely love it.
and yeah, like Chris rang me up and it was like I just loved how family it was, and we still have these Zoom meetings and
Yes.
and stuff like this, and I what's like if there's been a sort of community journey there, it's been that when we all started out podcasting back in 2006, there was no social media, maybe MySpace. Do you remember MySpace? So there was MySpace, and then there was like people like Fred and Casey who were doing the scripted thing in the US, and there was us doing it over in the UK. But it took about 2-3 years for us to find each other and realize that was a thing. And the last few years here in the UK, there's been some great work by people like Ella Watts to sort of unite the scripted podcast community, and from top to bottom, regardless of you know however experienced you are to however new and fresh. But what's happening, I think, in the last year, particularly the work Fred and I have been doing, and I think it's starting to pay off, is that we're now sort of like, hey, we're over here in the UK, let's come over and meet you guys, and vice versa. And we've managed, and Podfest, I think, was just brilliant for broadening that kind of global community base,
Oh yeah.
allowed, because like I say, audio fiction is a niche within a niche, but the actual sort of collective spirit of what we're all doing and that support for each other, which is so important in the age of no discoverability and no monetization, has got so much better because of events like that. It's just
Yeah.
it's just brilliant, and it's a testament to Chris, and he very much deserves his world record as well for the virtual
Oh
event. So
yes. Oh yes, Chris. Um, Jack and I were. For those of you that don't know, Jack and I were involved. Well, I wasn't, but I was sitting on the outside being a silent cheerleader. Jack and I were involved in a lone um, virtual podcast summit whereupon Chris Twin Missiles now holds the Guinness Book of World Records.
yes, and like he just said, I literally he put that together in what, 3 months, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something like, we're just going to hold it a virtual event, and it will be we're going to make a Guinness World Record out of it, and he did it.
Yep.
And it's just like amazing. Have you ordered your certificate yet?
No, I haven't, and I need to do that. I need.
My,
I
mine's stuck in the post office, I think, at the minute, because they
yeah.
missed me the other day. But if you were part of that, you did a presentation at Podfest, you can order your world record certificate and put it on the wall and say that's the kind of thing we can do when we come together as a podcasting community. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Exactly. Now, Jack, where can people find you if they choose to do so?
Oh, I'm very easy to find. I'm over here. So my website would be a good place to start, which is www.jackbowman.net. And there is a contact form there. So if anyone wants to discuss scripted audio fiction, my door is always open, because the more people who make it, the better. Hurrah.
Yeah.
You can also find me on Twitter. I am at Real Jack Bowman there. And if you're interested in chasing up on having a listen to Circles. On Instagram and Twitter, it's Hear Circles, and on Facebook, it's Circles Podcast. Sorry, Circles Podcast. If you want to check out what's going on with that.
Well, I appreciate it, and I think that the Ask Win team should go listen to Circle, and I think that the Ask Win team should be more in tune with scripted audio because scripted audio is here to stay. Along with interview shows, scripted audio is here to stay. But we need to get, and I'm not kidding when I say this, just ping me and just knock on my DMs and say, Win, help me out. I have a scripted audio show and I will be happy to listen, happy to interview you because I think scripted audio is the best thing since sliced bread. And now that you know a little bit about my history, you know why I love it. And so, Ask Win Team, go listen to Circles and get Jack download numbers and make Jack happy because Jack, as I said, yes, as
That's
I
official
said, Jack,
joke. Official joke on podcast. That was Punchy Disguise.
official joke podcast. But as I said, Jack really works hard, and also the audio engineers out there that now know that I'm audio engineers child, they also work hard. And so scripted, even though I don't do scripted audio, I love to support the independent podcast creator, whichever genre they're in. So please, 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 please go support podcasters in general, and please go support independent audio creation, scripted audio in particular. And we'll see you guys later. Bye, you guys. Thanks.
Take care. Thank you for having me on. Thank you.